Well, first of all, I want to thank you very much for coming to the presentation and to let you know that you need to go on the website and then download the handouts that we had for all the classes, including the one this morning. There was a handout, and then also the one that I'm doing now. So that'll help you with the information that I'm going to give you to have those handouts. I wasn't aware that they weren't handing them out per class until after the class, so I didn't get to tell the folks that were there this morning about it. This is going to be pretty much all DNA, but hopefully it'll get your interest going on how to use autosomal DNA. That's what I'm covering today. How that can expand your family history and your family tree. And also, I want you to always think that when you put your history and DNA together, it's a puzzle. It has to fit. If it doesn't fit, there's something wrong. And let me tell you a story. My first thing was to get a lot of cousins to test DNA, first cousins on my dad's side, because I knew little about that particular side. So as I looked at the results, I saw something that wasn't fitting with what it should be. In other words, first cousins, because you're sharing the same grandparents. All of the first cousins are sharing the same grandparents. You have different parents, but you're sharing the same grandparents. That you're going to be sharing centimorgans, which is a measurement of DNA, of approximately 700 to 900 centimorgans. I'm going to just call that CM. So he only shared about 300. And it was a real puzzle because we didn't have a family story that would identify why he would not be sharing as a full first cousin. And so I talked with him and I said, can you get your sister to test? And so he did. And the results came back that they were full first cousin. I mean, they were full siblings, not half. Because at one point when we had that low amount, I was thinking that one of the parents wasn't the expected parents. They didn't have any family story to say that wasn't true. So the sister tested, and they were full siblings. They shared about 2,500 centimorgans. That's a full sibling. So then the situation became, which one of our grandparents that we all share had a non-paternal event? In other words, a nice way of saying that they created a baby with not their spouse. Didn't know which side yet. So the next step that you do in this journey is to have some first cousins or a second cousins from both sides. In other words, grandma's side and grandpa's side, and see if this unusual first cousin is sharing DNA with those other sides, with each of those sides. Well, we found out that he did not share any DNA with grandpa's side, but only on his grandma's side. So then I'm like, okay, how do we find the culprit? Who was that missing grandparent that he only shares? So I looked at his ethnicity. That was my next step. I was hoping I could get a clue there. Well, the clue was he had 25% Italian. 25%, that equals a grandparent, actually, because you're going to share about 25% DNA with your grandparents. So then I had to figure out, okay, what Italian was running around in the area where grandma was, and to see if I could pick up some names. I had a couple of clues from his matches, but I still wanted to see if they were in close proximity. You have to have close proximity for this to work. And I did find a whole family that were directly from Italy. They just got off the boat practically, like 5 years. And it was a guy that was declaring himself single. And I started researching that family. To make a long story short, yes, it was his grandfather. Yes, he had first cousins from that line. And I was reaching out to them, gathering a little bit of information. Well, I found out that his grandfather from Italy, I'll call him the Italian right now. And I said, okay, can you tell me about it? Well, they knew that he had left a wife in Italy and never brought her over. And two, he'd been married a couple of times, but he also had a couple of unexpected non-paternal events as well. And I says, well, my cousin is one of those. So, but anyway, to make a fun story out of this, I didn't know how he was going to handle this. He had given me full access to do what I needed to do. But I didn't want him to be real upset. I have a very good relationship with his wife. So I said, I'll talk to his wife first, right? And I said, okay, here's the story. You want me to talk to your husband or do you want it? He says, I think I better do it. I said, that's what I thought. So I gave her some time, gave him some time. And she called me up about, 2, 3 weeks later. And she says, okay, he accepts it. He's okay. Go ahead. I said, okay. So then I sent him his tree, sent him his information because I had got a couple more generations on his tree on his grandfather's side. And I started calling him the Italian stallion. And he actually enjoyed that. I mean, it was like bonding on a personal basis on a really bad information that you can find when you do genealogy. And I can tell you, I've been doing this for a little over 10 years now. It's hard to believe, almost 15. But you're going to find non-paternal events. If you don't, there's something wrong with your tree. Because they did a survey with NEGS, that's the American Ancestors, where they have a lot of research. And one of the surveys they did one month was, do you have non-paternal events in your family? And they went through their list. 59% of the people that responded to that survey had non-paternal events, things that they did not know about, weren't expecting, and it changed. A lot of people find siblings they didn't know about. And even going back to the grandparents, sometimes they find siblings there. I'm up to, at this point, 25 solved non-paternal events in my 2 sites. And if you think about it, that's probably about that average that they think one about every generation. That would include your first cousins because you were all the same generation. And I would say that's probably about true. So don't be surprised or hurt if it happens because they were human and they lived, lives and they went through a lot of stressful times. So we don't want to put our thought process on their lives because it was who they were. So anyway, I have found that it's very, very interesting. And before I get into the body of this, if you've got a little piece of paper and a pencil, I'd like to have you write down 1, 2, 3. And on 1, put E. And on 2, put J. And 3, put R. Now, some of you might know what I'm talking about. But is haplogroup E Africa, Arabian Peninsula, or Western Europe? Haplogroup E, is it Africa, Arabian Peninsula, or Western Europe? The haplogroup is an E of a group of people that have haplogroup E. All right. Number 2 was haplogroup J. So is it Africa, Arabian Peninsula, or Western Europe? And haplogroup R, is that Africa, Arabian Peninsula, and North Africa? Or pardon me, Western Europe. Okay, do you have your answers? Okay, what's haplogroup E? Pardon me? No, any other? It's Africa. Okay, so haplogroup J, what do you think? Okay, Rich said Arabian, Southern Europe, North Africa, it's all kind of a area there. And he's correct, actually. What about haplogroup R? Western Europe, absolutely. And do you know that 50% of the men carry haplogroup R in Western Europe? That includes Scotland, British Isles, and Ireland, and include German and all that area. I think there is, but I don't know where I think it might be designated either in the Far East or perhaps, I don't know if it's Native American. I'm not sure about that. But I just thought that was kind of interesting to see because I know Rich's are, because we did haplogroup work for a number of years. But it's also, I have found people in our group that have tested their Y haplogroup, which is your male haplogroup, that they're in the J category, and so it's wide open and everything that they're learning now is just exciting. All right, that was just to get you thinking. And remember, I think DNA is nothing but a puzzle. And before I forget it, there is a handout that has some different websites for you to go to learn more about what I'm going to be speaking on. And you can, with the handouts, I didn't bring into the room because I thought that you guys would already have them. But the over in the where they have the table set up, the table for the daughters of the Union vets, Civil War, there's a handout out there, and ask them for the DNA handout. Thank you. She's going to go get them for you guys. All right. Well, I have a question for you. Why did the two relatives argue over their shared DNA? Because one said, we're close family, and the other replied, only 50 centimorgans. So I just thought that was kind of funny because it brings me into a really fun story. One of my DNA cousins, her tree and my tree were totally different. The only thing we had in common was location. And I knew she was a cousin. I could even place her in my tree. But she said, no, you can't be my cousin. You're not my cousin. So we developed a friendship. We took it in good humor. I kept giving her little bits of information about DNA so she could understand it better. And one of the things that I sent her was that if you share DNA at the first, second, and third cousin level, DNA doesn't lie, you're cousins. And so I sent her that little article and she called me back in about a couple of days and she says, okay, we're cousins. Yes. You're right. Yeah, it depends on what level. She was a second cousin. Yeah, so I kind of knew that. And, but anyway, so it was really kind of fun. We have developed a heck of a good friendship. She got her sister, who's happened to be 90 years old now, got her sister to test, the nieces tested. I mean, we got so many people, and guess who they're all matching? They finally have given up. We're cousins. So don't give up when you get somebody that says, I'm not your cousin. So don't give up on it. Yes, I know where she fits in the tree. Yes. It just took a while. Okay, let's see. I'll maybe do that. I'm going to skip the A and B, and it just give you, for you to completely research your family history. DNA is an extremely important part of it. A lot of people jump into DNA with just the idea of getting ethnicity, but the problem is you got to have the research, the family history, all of that goes hand in hand. And you're going to constantly learn about it, that going forward. But I am going to introduce you to the new tools. Let's see if I can manage this now. Okay, I think it's there. Okay, I'm going to my Ancestry account, and you can see under the results, I hit DNA. All right, then you can see all the different categories: origin, matches, through lines, traits, compare. And then you can even get your pet DNA checked now. So I also am going to bring this up over here. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. It was acting a little strange on me today. Okay, I'm going to bring in the enhanced shared matches. And this is a new thing that they put under the Pro tools, and that is a $10 a month charge. So at this point, you have to have a minimum of an Ancestry 6-month membership. And then if you want to do the Pro tools along with it, I would suggest that you go ahead and do it. I think you'll get your benefit out of it. One thing about it, you can just drop it after a month. And if you want to go back to it later, you can. Or you may, if you're one of the folks that likes to work on it on a monthly basis and keeps on working, then you might just want to add it to your budget, because it's got some great tools. So what I'm going to show you here is I can do it by parent. And so the question is always asked, how does Ancestry know which parent to assign it to? Well, very easily, because if you take a look at, I know these people because of my work, but I also know that I can click on it. And I'm one of the fortunate few that has a half sister, I have a half sister on my paternal side and a half brother on my maternal side that have tested. So I know right away which is paternal and maternal. But with this system, it does that. Before I knew because of their relationship to me. Now Ancestry has done that for me, so I wouldn't need that little extra help. So if you can see what I have, then it gives me all the matches. And you can see that as a half sibling, we share about 2,000 centimorgans, or 28% of our shared DNA. That says that we're half siblings. We share the same father. And she's on my paternal match. Now, I can go by ancestor. And you can see that if I click on that, and this is my father, he is deceased. I never did get to meet him. But you can see that my half sister shows up, but she's still living, so her name is private, because this is the thing that you need to be aware of. On your tree, if you're alive, then they aren't going to show. All right, so this is my half niece, and this would be my granddaughter. Now, what they have done on this, because they don't know where my granddaughter belongs, technically she would be under me because it would be my daughter and then her daughter. So they would be under here. So she's a full granddaughter, not a half grandniece, although with my sister, she is. So, and it would be let's see, what would it be? I'm trying to think. My dad, my kids would be his grandchildren. Yeah, it would be, I'd be a half great grandchild of my dad. Had to stop and think about that for a sec. And you can also do it by location. So it goes in and it loads DNA matches that are semi-public, not the real private ones, and puts them in different locations based on their DNA, based on what their information is. So you can see I've got a couple of cousins down in Australia. I've got seven cousins that are in this general area. And I've got a couple in Alaska, Hawaii. I've got them all over. If you notice this group, let's see if I can get that. Move it up a little bit. So you can see I have cousins all over the United States. So this gives me one big clue. It means that my family traveled from one side of the country to the other side of the country in the last 400 years. And during their journey, they dropped sections of their family off, and I have cousins in every state just about. So when I go to set up a research plan, I have to be very focused because I could get drawn in 100 different ways. Last time I looked, I had 90,000 cousins. And I don't know about you, but 90,000 cousins is too much. All right, let me move this out of the way. All right, and I got to move that out of the way. I'm going to go to compare. All right. I'm going to get this back up. There it is. All right, from current slide. So I want to overview just a bit. Ancestry only does autosomal DNA. And autosomal DNA is going to put your cousins together from anybody that's closely related to you, like children, their children, their children, aunts and uncles, their kids, their kids. All that's going to be close relative. You're automatically going to share DNA. If you don't, they're not your family. They may be your family in heart, but in DNA, they're not. That means there's some type of an adoption or a non-paternal event or something to that effect that's caused that. Now, why DNA? I always want to have you think of a why. The why part, on this left side, is all of your paternal line, father to father to father to father, no women involved. The maternal line is your mother to mother to mother back to the end of time. Autosomal is everything. Your autosomal is good up to fourth, fifth generation, your fourth or fifth great grandparents. Does anybody know how many fifth great grandparents you have if you had a completed tree? Rich, do you know? Yeah, if you had a completed tree. I think it's 1,000 and some, like 1,048. So that's a lot of cousins. I want you to visualize that. Okay, so how does DNA testing complement traditional research? And I'm going to go here. And I think this will probably answer your questions. Can my DNA help me find new family members? Absolutely, yes. In fact, when I got up to about 200 that I knew exactly where they were in my tree, what relationship. And I'm like, I feel like the person that has too many cousins and doesn't know what to do. Because it's overwhelming, because you're developing relationships with these people as you go along, even though it's online. We had Facebook groups that we were developing, family Facebook groups, so we could share stories and pictures and history without having that DNA confirmation, because everybody knows that if you share DNA with somebody, you're related. You may not know where they go, but you're related. And I got to say, I got down to about 100. And I call them my close cousins, and I really have a personal relationship with them. And that's been very heartwarming for me anyway. Will your DNA results change? And a lot of people think that it depends on which company they test with. And that's not true. Your DNA is the same whether you test with Ancestry or Family Tree DNA or MyHeritage. All of the companies do something that's exactly the same. They take your autosomal, they break it down into centimorgans, and they process that against everybody that's tested in their database. Why do I recommend Ancestry right now? Is because they have something like 30 million people who have done autosomal testing. Now, out of that, yes. Oh, identical twins?
No, you're not an identical twin. How could your two sisters not have the same DNA?
They're not. Okay. Okay, think about this. Your mom and your dad each have 7,500 centimorgans. That's what makes them up. They got half from their mom, half from their dad, different lines totally. So when you have children, they're going to get half of the mother's DNA and half of the father's. Each child's going to get that, but it's not going to be the same, because remember that mother has 7,500, and as a full child, you're only going to pass about 2,500 to 3,000 to that child. So that means, yeah, so it's the way DNA goes. A lady asked me, and I said, really theoretically as well as a mathematical probability, you could have 4 sisters that have the same mother and father, and the mother and father are deceased and have not, didn't ever give their DNA, that you could put together the 4 of them, their DNA, and have almost a complete picture of their mom and dad. But then they'd have to separate that out, which is mom, which is dad. That's a whole different problem, but it could be done. So when you get to first cousins, like I said, you're going to share around 700 to 900 centimorgans. Second cousins, you're going to be around 400 to 500 centimorgans. And, probably none of us here, although that may not be a true statement, are going to have grandparents that are living. But if you did and you tested them, you would expect to see about 25%. Remember, every generation going back gets cut by half. So you're 100%, your parents gave you 50%, your grandparents each gave you another 25%. For grandparents, 100%. Then the question is, can I see which parent my matches come from? Well, with Ancestry's new tool, you can. Now it doesn't want to move. Okay, be that way. Here is some facts about the Pro Tools. Putting your match data to work for you. See your matches and the relationships to each other with enhanced shared view. Let me explain that. All right. let's say I'm going to pick on Rich because I've known him for a long, long time. Let's say he's my full brother. And he's going to have different matches than I am. So I can use his DNA to build a more complete DNA structure of my cousins, particularly when you get back to second and third cousins. First cousins is probably going to be about the same because you have that rule about 7 to 900. So how do you enhance that? Well, let's say that we have a half second cousin, and we're trying to figure out where they might fit in the tree. So Rich's information with that second cousin might show that he's a third cousin. But for me, it's a second cousin because I'm sharing more DNA with that person that Rich did. We're going to see that in action in a little bit. You're going to be able to view your matches by parent, even though your parents haven't tested. The view split up by two sides of your family and regions by the parents and journey by the parents. And I'm going to show you examples of that on the screen. What we have is the ability, or Ancestry has given us the ability to be able to see the journey of each of our sides and how they came together, which is kind of interesting. You can also, if you get involved with the traits with the Pro Tools, you can discover which parent's DNA had more influence on your traits. I'm going to show you a couple examples of that for me. Match relationship tools. And this is where it really gets interesting. Potential ancestors with through lines, that was their old ability to match us up with potentials. It was sometimes not very accurate. It would identify ancestors to add to your trees, but you'd always have to do the research first. Well, now, if you have a family tree that's linked to your DNA test, in other words, you put yourself in there, you can even put private, but you link your DNA to that person on your tree, it will compare information in your matches tree as well. I'm going to show you an example of that. I'm going to go through this just a little bit, and then I will go back to my live tree that you can see. You can access the following and more. All matches you have in common with any match. Your match's full family trees, ancestors' last name, birth locations. Your tree has in common with your matches trees. Records, photos, historical documents, and through lines and family trees. And all of this is because of AI and how they're using it for genealogy. You're going to see a lot more, and it's just going to blow your socks out down the road. The traits are characteristics that are influenced by your DNA, which is also influenced from your parents. There's at least 75 traits and counting that include nutrients, performance, sensory, personality, appearance categories, and then you can compare with your family. So here's the first step. You can see the ancestral region. And let's see, I don't know that I have. Let's see if I can get this to work. Okay, here's your ancestral region. This is totally me. I'm going to take that later and I'm going to break it down so you can kind of see that. This is the ancestral journey for my tree. And everyone's going to have a slightly different journey. Matches, obviously, you know, it says I've got 91,640 matches. I have 60 new ones that I haven't looked at. And here's some traits. It's going to tell me which parent influenced my unlikely to enjoy dancing and doing things alone, which parent influenced that. I mean, they're kind of silly stuff, but it's kind of interesting too. And whether I'm an introvert or extrovert. So Gonna go get rid of that and get rid of that. All right.
Matches are only, they have tested.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, Roots Tech, if you've ever experienced it online, they have a software there that you can sign up for if you have a tree on familysearch.org. And it will tell you how many cousins you have online, through being online and in person. And last year I had 57,000 people that were my DNA cousins on my tree line. I'm like, that's just too much. Yes.
The first concept, Shawnee.
Centimorgans, somewhere between 7 and 900. First cousins are going to be in that range. Yeah. 900 centimorgans. That's a very good match. Okay, so here's the first step. Now, everybody likes to test for ethnicity, and the problem is ethnicity, and then Rich will back me up on this. My ethnicity has changed almost every 6 months since I've done this about 15 years ago. And it's because there's a reason for it, because they're testing more and more populations, more and more people, and they're getting better at their job. So is this going to stand as golden? Nope. But right now, I'm 42% Scotland. I'm 36% English or Northwestern Europe, 14% German, 4% Sweden, and 2% or 3% Ireland. And Rich has seen my ethnicity, and I used to be about 40% Irish. And so it keeps decreasing. Now,
Where your ancestor came from, it's whatever the government is to do.
yes. Yes. So the ethnicity is going to be identifying ancestors that lived over 1,000 years ago. So we're talking way back, but it still gives you kind of like, I wanted to be Irish. And well, I started out, I wanted to be Viking. Well, then I found out my paternal uncle, his haplogroup for the male haplogroup goes back, he's a Norway Viking, so I got the Viking, but they took my Irish away. Who knows? But you can see it identifies on a map clearly of, where my deep ancestors came from. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You have to know history. Very, very astute observation. You have to know history of you got to know Irish history before you can understand Scotland. Yes.
Is there a way to tell if you have a native Indian? I know that the focus is branched out on you.
Autosomal is not going to be doable in my opinion, and it is my opinion. If you have a mother line, mother to mother to mother, that is definitely you feel is Indian, I think, yes, you could prove it because it'll be a unique haplogroup that has been identified through many, many years of research to be Native American. What it won't be able to do is to tell you what tribe. They can't do that because they're still trying to figure that out. They don't know whether our Indian ethnicity came down through Alaska and then kind of sorted out, or whether it came up from South America and came up, or if it came over from Australia or some of those islands and it kind of mixed over time. They don't know. But they can identify a haplogroup for a female, and they can also do the same for a male. But it has to be male, 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 female, female, female. Yes.
African coast or western coast is getting, as more and more people have DNA density. I'm not talking about tribe, but kind of throw in on this is, Kenyan is where this is going, or this is going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of research on that in the last 2 years that have just broke that open. So if I was a person of African descent and it was on my mother's side, I'd go to family tree DNA and I would do the mtDNA, including the coding region. And if I was a male, it had to be like a brother or what, and do the same. But remember, sometimes that non-paternal event gets in there and messes it up. And if you follow, I'm trying to think the name of the show. Who Do You Think You Are? Yeah. Well, even with some of his superstars, his guests, they're thinking all the way back to Africa and they're finding out their haplogroup is Northern Europe. Finding your roots. Yes. I highly recommend that show. They do wonderful research and it gives you a perspective of what you can, find and get excited about. Oh.
One of the exciting things there's roughly 30 tribes south of the Great Lakes. Up to 25% of those Native American population. People are going crazy. That's impossible. No boats before Columbus. And no Genghis Khan markers, which is most Europeans have Genghis Khan markers. They came from the steppes over. Don't have those, but they got there's a lot of exciting things, cutting edge stuff going on this.
It really is. And I don't know where it's going to take us or lead it, but definitely want to be involved with it. Let's see. Let's go here. Okay, this is going to get into a little bit. As you can see, I make up, I'm on the right-hand column if you can see. I don't know how that, I guess that's transferring well. Okay, here's 100% of me. So Scotland, and I was surprised about this. I've got 32% of Scottish from my dad, which it really was surprising because they were convinced that they all were from Ireland, literally. I mean, I had a cousin that bought a ground in Ireland because they were Irish. All right, so when we did this and I found out my uncle, was a Viking from Norway and that our ethnicity was Scotland. I mean, that's pretty high Scotland, right? 1/3 of me is Scottish. I thought he isn't going to handle this well. I mean, I really was really concerned about telling him. Well, a couple of days later, he posted on Facebook his new profile picture, and it was a Viking with the horns. So just know this is going to turn people upside down in some cases, so you have to be prepared. Thank God he didn't get mad. But my maternal, which is really surprising, I only got 11%. And I've got one whole line that goes back to Scotland. I mean, we're talking like my second great grandparent all the way back. They were all from Scotland. And how do I know? Well, it's kind of an interesting phenomenon. I'll show you here in a little bit.
Somewhere between 15 and 1600, they brought a lot of Scots to Ireland to quell the rebellion of the people.
Our family left Scotland and went directly to Canada and the United States. They didn't go to Ireland. Yep. Nope. It's just really crazy. But remember, I only got half of my mom. And what I'm going to show you in a little bit what my brother got. He got a half too, but we have different ethnicities. Yeah. All right. So the German, and this doesn't surprise me. My 14% came from my dad's side. His mother, my grandmother, all of her side went back to Germany. 15 minutes. Oh. I get an extra 5 minutes because I couldn't get started on time?
Um,
Okay, now I broke this down into a few of my family so you could kind of get a feel for it. I'm going to point out something. This person and this person are on my paternal side. And remember, I'm 43%, but here's a 27%. Here is a 19%. So my paternal side is verifying that Ancestry is onto something. I've got to start digging in the Scottish records. You know, and that's going to be the ones probably that are going to lead me back. I'm pretty much documented till about 1750, but so I'm going to be in Scotland looking for some connection in Scotland more than I have. All right, so then if you look at the England area, this is my maternal cousin, and of course, my mom. And here's my brother, John. But look how much he got. He got 61% to my 36%. But remember that, you know, half, he got some half I didn't get on the ethnicity, but he also has a different father than I do. So you see how that works? You always have to be aware of your knowledge base there. But now Sweden, this is fascinating. I have nobody that matches me in Sweden. So how did I get Sweden? Nobody. Ireland, I've got 3%. Now, here again, it looks like my paternal side is coming across, but I don't know. I've got 11% here and 1%, but look at my mom and my brother. He's only got 2%. Yeah, he's got 21% and she's got 27% Irish. So I didn't get the Irish part probably from them. If I did, it's just going to be a little bit, you know, least. So I'm probably going to quit worrying about my Irish side for a while. So, but here's another interesting thing. I got no Wales, and my mom had no Wales, but my brother has 7%. Now I can make an assumption here, can't prove it. I can make an assumption that his Wales comes from his dad. So I also do his research for him. So I can focus on Wales to see if I can get a connection going there. So remember, it's just hints guiding you where you need to go. Okay, let's see here. Now, this is what I really want you to take. Now, remember, these are new tools that Ancestry is giving us through the Pro Tools. And what I want you guys to think about, what I've done is I've split my chromosome, mother and father side, and I'm only interested in Scotland. Okay, very simple. This is my maternal Scotland, and this is my paternal Scotland. I'm only doing one ethnicity, and I'm only going, I'm splitting me in half. Now, if you'll notice, what I can take from this on my paternal side, I can take this information to like GEDmatch or Family Tree DNA. I can print this up. I can look at it. If I've got somebody on either one of those sides that's matching me on my paternal side on chromosome 1, I know it's got a Scottish connection. If I match somebody on my mom's side, I have a full chromosome there from both of them. So that chromosome 1 is nothing but Scottish DNA. Now, with that in mind, let's keep it, you know, thinking about critical thinking. It might be wrong, but that's the best we have right now. So going forward, you can see that I've got a lot of potential here on my dad's side. Now, does that compare to what I was seeing on the breakdown? Yes, it was telling me that my dad was giving me more Scottish than I was giving him credit for. Now, my mom has, you'll notice that there's not a lot of, well, on chromosome 12 and That's it. Chromosome 12 and chromosome 1 are the two chromosomes that I can use, that if I find somebody, I can know that they're going to be a Scottish research project. So that's how I can use that information. That's just what they do. It doesn't have any work. If you'll notice, there was 2 bars on each chromosome, and they have decided to, let's see here. They have decided to make the mother's, this is my mom's paternal side, which I know is my Scottish side. And then this is what they've came up with. And you'll notice all of them are on top. This is my mom's maternal side, and you can see that it's on the bottom. And so I can do this little technique with every one of my matches and my dad, and I can do it on every country. Yeah, I'm going to have some paper here, and I've got to analyze it and write my notes up and so forth and so on. You just forget back there. Okay, so let me go back. Okay. Okay. This is my half brother, and you can see he shares 2,054 centimorgans, a little bit more than my sister. Doesn't mean anything. It's right there where it's supposed to be. And you can see that we have a common ancestor. And so now I want to show you this because it gives us an important view of it. As you can see, here's the centimorgans, maternal side, and this is paternal side. This is my sister. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm looking at shared matches with my mom. Let me see if I can get that up there. Yeah, that's kind of in the way. Okay, this is with my granddaughter. She is my granddaughter. And I want to point this out because you have to know what the relationships are on these close matches, because sometimes ancestry will lead you down the wrong path. And that's what they were going to do. They're telling me that my granddaughter is a first cousin one time removed to my sister. And that's not true. She would be her great niece, half great niece. So sometimes their estimate can be where it's one of those close areas that your centimorgans, go across. Now, here's my granddaughter again with her uncle. Now, this time it does say that he's a half grand uncle, and that would be correct, but it gives 2 possibilities. It could be a first cousin one time removed. But in this case, I know it's the half grand uncle because he would be a half uncle to my daughter. Well, now it doesn't want to do what it's supposed to do. All right, this gives you another little way of looking at it, and I want to point this out. You have half relationships, but if you aren't dealing with half relationships, you can turn this on full. Full sibling, a full cousin, whatever. But remember, you never know where those NPEs are going to show up. So you might want to flip back and forth between the two and make some notes. Now, I know that this is a half relationship. And so this gives you the probability. This is my granddaughter of what she shares with my half sister. And this was their age groups. And this is CM Explainer. And I love CM Explainer because they give you the chance of age, which is important because then you have that generation down, one time removed, whatever. And so you can guess at the ages, and that helps. I like the way they put this together because it's actually very correct. It gives you all the possibles, and these are going to be pretty much factual, but you still have to decide whether it's workable. So they'll give you the information. My granddaughter could be a half great with my brother or my aunt or my sister, a half great uncle, or it could be parents half first cousin. but I know for sure that she's my granddaughter, so that's how that works. All right. One of the things they did, and I'm about done. Okay. One of the things they do is they give you ways of developing your story about DNA, and you can really elaborate with it. And you know, this is not live, but I don't have time to go in and do some of these things for you. But you want to explore that because it gives you a rich history, and you can copy and paste this in a Word document and utilize it along with your story. All right, so we've talked about best practices for contacting DNA matches is to be open. If you talk somebody into a DNA test, be open. Say, hey, I don't expect, but it could. You know, like you could have a non-paternal event. You could have a half sibling you don't know about. I mean, I can tell you this happens a lot. So you need to be honest with the people that you test. And do you want to have any contact information or you just want to remain private with it? That's their choice too. I'm pretty open, as Rich probably could tell you, I'm pretty open about my story. I'm adopted. I had none of this information in 2009. And I have developed a complete family history. And believe it or not, I have proven lineage back to the Mayflower. And I've done the research and I've, you know, do the DNA. I mean, you know, it's possible. It's doable if you want to spend the time. Yes.
Is illegitimate. So. My grandmother. My dad was never listed. I mean, it just says illegitimate. My dad was born in 1950. So if I did the DNA.
Do you have siblings? You want to test all of you? Simply because, and that would be on your mother's side or father's side, that father's side. Okay, it might be helpful to have at least one first cousin in that match too. He would be a half, and the reason you need him, assuming he has a different father's line, that's what I would expect from what you told me, if I'm understanding it correctly. So it's your dad that has yeah, so it's your dad that doesn't have it. If you've got a brother, one other thing you could do is to test your Y DNA, because that's going to give you a lot of factual information. I don't hang tight on surnames, but it gives you location. So it can be very beneficial. Mhm. You don't want to put your first name and last name there. I use, as you can see, I use Leah. Ancestry doesn't care. On your test, you have your real name, but they don't post that. You know, what you would, if you went into my tree, it's a public tree, you would see Leah. So,
It would match it.
well, what's going to happen? Let's say you have a full first cousin or you might have to go back to a second cousin. That if you have if you have a full first cousin on both sides, mother and father, you're going to be able to separate whether it's mother or father. You're interested in the father. All right, so if all the siblings test, then you're going to be able to match that first cousin's always got to be in that cycle. You're going to be able to pinpoint, you know, where it gets off. And so then hopefully the DNA matches you would be looking at are going to be first cousins, but you're not going to know who they are. You probably know your first cousins, right? That you grew up with on your dad's side? No first cousins. Okay, yours could be interesting, but it's doable.
Just show information to your man. I don't know, Marty's got 90,000, so she's.
You're focusing, remember, you got 25% from that grandpa that doesn't know his lineage. So you're going to be able to go back another generation very easily. I can show you that. Let me finish this up and then I will show you that. Okay, let me do just a little bit more and then I'll get to that last thing. Here are some things that I thought was kind of funny. Likely prefer doing things with people. I'm less likely to do things with other people, which I think is not really me. I think I'm probably halfway, half the time, but maybe not. I'm in DNA, right? Who knows? Tongue rolling. Do you want to know which parent influenced my tongue rolling? That was my paternal side. Dancing, both parents had equal influence. That, I guess that's why I don't dance a lot, but I do like dancing. Okay, I love this one though. Hangriness, that's a new word that popped up about 2 years ago. And that means you get angry when you're hungry. That is me, guys. Don't get me hungry because I don't want to, I lose my patience. Okay, I'm influenced by my mom's side, so I can blame my mom.
Oh, I can.
Okay, so this is a true survey that was done by NEGS, American Ancestors. They had 3,100 responses. 55% said at least one ancestor had a child out of wedlock. 56% at least one of my ancestors was pregnant at the time of her marriage. 9% don't believe they had any ancestry, and 8% doesn't know of any, and 14% say, I don't know. So if you kind of think about this as percentage, almost 100% had some kind of non-paternal event there going on. Um,
Have access to the DNA button on Ancestry.
let me do this side, one little thing, and then I'll show them the, yeah, I'll make it quick. I just want you to know that close matches will be from 3,500 centimorgans to 350. You are closely related to those folks. They are worth the journey and the research to figure out where they go. At third cousins, you're going to be approximately 50% chance of having DNA. They could be a third cousin and they don't share DNA. And I could tell you another story about that, but I don't have time. When you get me on DNA, it's hard to get me to quit. Now, I want to tell you that we're going to have DNA classes starting in January for free. And all you have to do is sign up. TGS has the table out there. Tell them you want to get invited to the DNA class starting in January and with your email, and we'll send you out a link. It's by Zoom, so it's not in person, so you can be right there and help us out. Now, I want to ask you one more question. What did the DNA test tell the confused cousins before they went to Thanksgiving? A little Thanksgiving humor. Relax. You share enough to be related by CMMs, but not enough to split Thanksgiving with you. I love that one. Now I got to tell you a funny story about getting this joke. I let AI find me jokes, and then they gave me about 10 or 15 selections, and I picked out 2.
We go home with
I'm sorry. Oh, well, let me show you this. I'm gonna close out. First of all, I want to show you how you can check your account settings and make it private. Yeah. Okay, so it's under account settings. And you can check each one of these boxes and see what is showing. And then Let's see here. They keep moving things around on me. Okay, so here's your public profile and you can, if I wanted to change that, there's a button here, you click and then you just say me. You know, you don't share information. And under your tree, you do the same thing. It's under tree setting. And it's under, let's see, tree setting. And here I've got site preference. You click on that and you make it public. So very easy to do. So I probably have time for one more question while they're getting things ready and I'm closing down.
Why do you
What?
think it's time to work?
Oh, man, it lets you know who you are real quick. And it lets you know who your cousins are and you can put that together with family history and write stories and I could have never done this without all of the stuff that I've done. Thank you.